What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bourbon of the Week. My name's Chris. I'm going to be your host for today. If this is your first time seeing the channel, the set probably doesn't look that impressive to you, but if you've been here before, you're probably like, where are we? Why are things so different? We recently moved. I'm in a new house. We don't have a bar set up yet. I got an 8-month-old baby and an ice cream business in July, so things have been a bit hectic. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for coming back. You guys don't care about any of that, though. You're here for the bourbon. You're here for the review. So this is Heaven Hill 7-year bottled and bond. That's what we're working with today. It's a little empty already, as you can see. I'll tell you why that is in a minute, but everybody knows before we get started, time for the traditional sip. Time for the traditional sip. I can't mess up my first one back. Cheers, y'all. It's Heaven Hill. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. This is Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond. You know the rules: price, taste, drinkability on a scale of 10, 2 decimal points out. Price is obviously the value of the bourbon, how it compares to other bourbons in its price range. Taste is how good it tastes, and drinkability, which is what we're going to start with, is how the proof compares to the actual ethanol kick. When I first got started in bourbon, it was all about how easy it sipped, how smooth it was. A lot of people don't like those words, but I like to use them. So this is 100 proof, 7-year bottled and bond. We know it's 100 proof because it's bottled and bond. Check the other rules out if you don't know all the rules to bottled and bond. But we're going to start with drinkability. Like I said, this comes in at 100 proof, and Heaven Hill has always sipped very easy to me. It's always been smooth. There's an Elijah Craig, which isn't really my favorite when it comes to Heaven Hill, but everything else in their repertoire I absolutely love. I think it's definitely in my top 3 when it comes to distilleries. Old Forester, Brown-Forman, and then we have Wild Turkey is definitely my number 1 still. So Heaven Hill is definitely probably up there in my top 3. Let's take a sip of this, though, and see what we think on drinkability. So I wish I could say it's surprisingly smooth, but it's not a surprise anymore how smooth Heaven Hill stuff is. Elijah Craig is the one thing from Heaven Hill that I don't love myself, but everything else is just so good and so fantastic. But this coming in at 78% corn, 12% malted barley, and 10% rye really gives you a lot of sweetness that you're going to get on this. The nuttiness that you're going to get from the malted barley is really going to take away a lot of that spice and a lot of that ethanol kick as well. Now, we were at a bachelor party when I drank this the first time, which is why it's pretty empty. And if you guys are lucky, maybe I'll put a couple of the reviews that we did at the bachelor party in here. I don't know if YouTube will allow it because there was some music in the background. The first time I drank it there, I thought it was super sweet. Now I am getting a little bit more of that spice this time, now that I'm a little more sober than I was at the bachelor party, but still a lot of sweetness on this, which I think is lowering that ethanol content when it comes to this 100 proof bourbon. Let's take another sip and then I'll give it a score. Yeah, I mean, that 7-year age statement is really going to give this a little bit of oak that takes off some of that ethanol, and a lot of that sweetness from that malted barley is going to get rid of a lot of this ethanol kick. I'm going to give it a pretty good score when it comes to drinkability on this. I'm going to say like an 8.47. And up next, that's going to bring us into taste on this. And the weird thing about this bottle, and I shouldn't say it's weird because I actually enjoy the taste of this bottle, but it doesn't taste like a lot of other Heaven Hill products that I'm used to. You've got Henry McKenna. It doesn't really taste like that. It doesn't really taste like the Elijah Craig lineup. Obviously, like their Old Fitz, which comes from Heaven Hill, but that's their wheated mash bill. So that's the one thing about Heaven Hill is they have such a wide variety of products, and not all of them taste exactly the same. That's the one thing I will say about Wild Turkey. Their one mash bill, they definitely differ, don't get me wrong, but there's not a substantial difference between the flavor profile on one to the other. I think it's more of the ethanol content, the proof, they mess with stuff like that. There's definitely a difference, don't get me wrong, but when it comes from Heaven Hill to Wild Turkey, I think Heaven Hill has the edge when it comes to a vast variety of different bourbons. So for this one, I'm going to take another sip. We'll talk about the flavor profiles that I get, and then we'll give it a score. The first thing that I notice is this is dry. I don't usually like a dry bourbon. I don't like when a bourbon dries my mouth out. I understand like maybe it brings you back for another sip because you want to get your mouth wet again, but at the same time, it's not usually my favorite. And I think that holds true here. It's not my favorite type of dry flavor. There's a little bit of oak with that dryness, which kind of gives you the oak presence, that 7-year. I get it, but it's not my favorite when it comes to the dryness. Now, the flavor profiles, on the other hand, are right up my alley. You're getting cinnamon on this when it comes to the spice. You're getting the caramel and a lot of butterscotch. When I talked about the sweetness that I got from the bachelor party, I think that butterscotch is really what I picked up. Almost like a burnt caramel or like a burnt butterscotch. It's super sweet, creamy. All of that is right on the front of the tongue. And on the back end, you get that spice. You get a little bit of allspice, a little bit of that cinnamon, and that dryness definitely, it dries out your tongue immediately. but pair that with a 100 proof, pretty easy sipper, I don't mind it. I don't think the flavor profile is exceptional. I think when we get into price, we'll talk about it compared to the price, but I think it's like a traditional bourbon flavor, right? It's one of those things where if you sipped a glass of bourbon and you got this, you'd be like, yeah, that's bourbon. That's pretty easy to pick up as bourbon. If you were just in Matt Madness and Matt Madness gave you this, you'd be like, yeah, and he said, is this bourbon, rye, wheated, what is this? You would say it's bourbon, right? You would know that this is bourbon because it's just got that quintessential bourbon flavor to it, which isn't a bad thing, but at the same time, it's not unique. It doesn't stand out. It doesn't punch you in the face. It's not exciting. It's a boring bourbon, and sometimes that's what you're looking for. One more sip and I'll give it a score. I'm going to say it's pretty average, 7.27 when it comes to taste on this. And last but certainly not least, that's going to get us in a price on this. And the price on this bottle, MSRP's at $40. I picked it up for $50 in New York, which I don't think is too bad for the fact that I haven't had it before. So I am excited that I got my hands on it. I am excited that I got to try it. But at $50, I don't love this at all. At $40, which is MSRP, which is what we use here on this channel, I don't hate it. I think it's a little bit overpriced for the quality. It's definitely good, but at the same time, once we mention our Bourbon Bomb of the Week, which we're going to get to next, you're kind of going to understand my hesitation on giving this a great price score, because I think Heaven Hill has duped us, and I think they've done it in a great way. So I can't knock them for getting more money, but we will go over that in a second. Let's give this a score on price. I won't take too long for this one. I'm going to give it like a 6.99 when it comes to price on this. But listen, I poured a little bit more up because I got a story to tell you on this week's Bourbon Bomb of the Week. Let's send it over to that and learn a little bit more about this Heaven Hill 7-year bottled and bond. So here's the deal, and here's why I'm a little bit skeptical. Up until 2019, when this bottle was released, there was a Heaven Hill 6-year bottled and bond, which was a Kentucky-only release. Now, this bottle MSRP'd for $12 to $15. Compare that to the $40 price tag that we get on this, and we got to start asking questions. It's the same mash bill. It's got a 1-year difference on the age statement, and everything else from what I've read is exactly the same. So why does this warrant an extra $20, $25 on the price tag? I don't think that it does. I think that if you compared these two bottles side by side, there would be very slim difference between the two of them, which means it seems like Heaven Hill pulled a bait and switch. At least that's the way I take it, right? They put out a great bottle. They realized the market. They realized they could take this off the shelf. They already had stuff aged 7 years. They just put that in a brand new bottle with a brand new label, and they charge you $25 more for it. Now, this is released a little bit wider. I think this is in like 7 or 8 states, including like New York, Colorado, California, where the 6-year was only a Kentucky release. The weird thing is, originally, this was not released in Kentucky. I don't know exactly where it's at now in 2022. We don't have it here in Pennsylvania. I think I've seen it in New Jersey. So it's probably in New Jersey. But at the same time, you go from a Kentucky-only release, $12 to $15, all the way up to a couple 7, 8, 9 states, probably wider now, and you're charging $40 for it. I don't like it. I don't like what Heaven Hill has done in the past with their workers, and now this I'm learning about. It just seems like they're all about the money when it comes to the bourbon, but I guess I can't blame them because at the end of the day, it's not that bad, and when there's a market and it's booming, you got to make your money. What do you guys think? Cheers, y'all. But listen, that's enough marketing 101 for today. This bottle came in at a 7.58, which I think is a pretty fair spot for it, right? It's good, but it's not great. It's not exceptional by any means. It's not memorable either, right? Some of the bottles that I drink, you remember them, you want to try them again, you reach for them on the shelf all the time. This isn't one of those bottles. I'll probably finish this. I might get another bottle at some point, but I'm not going to be out there hunting for this particular bottle. But listen, that's where I'm going to leave you for today. Make sure you check me out on Instagram at Bourbon of the Week. If you want to help support the channel financially, check us out on Patreon. Link in the description below. We do a lot of fun things just for Patreons. We're getting things back up and running here. We also have a Discord as well. If you want to come chat with us 24/7, join the Discord. Please click that like, click that subscribe button. Don't drink and drive. Always drink responsibly and stay healthy, stay happy, stay drinking. Cheers, y'all. Not bad.